This segment will demonstrate the procedure for taking a liquid dip sample. Sampling manure prior to application will ensure that you receive the analysis in time to adjust nutrient application rates based on the nutrient concentration of the manure. Be sure to label sample bottles before filling them with the manure sample. A few pieces of equipment are needed for manure sampling. First, rubber gloves to protect yourself, a bucket to mix the subsamples from different locations in the pit, a funnel to pour the final mixed sample into, the labeled sample bottle, and a dip sampler. This sampler was made using a long piece of 1x2 and a cup securely taped to the end. When getting a sample, you need to have access to the pit, often through the pump-out ports. Once the port is open, break through the crust that may have formed on the surface and stir in one area to obtain a uniform sample. Taking one sample is similar to taking one soil core when soil sampling, so it is necessary to take 3 subsamples from within each pump-out port. After 3 subsamples have been taken from one port, move on to all remaining ports and access locations, repeating the process of mixing and taking 3 subsamples. After subsamples are collected, stir or swirl the bucket to mix the subsamples. Using the funnel, pour the mixed sample into the bottle until the bottle is about 3/4 full. The sample may be frozen before sending to the lab, so the extra space is needed for expansion. The sample should be frozen immediately and shipped frozen on a Monday or Tuesday, so it arrives at the lab for analysis during the week and not during the weekend. This method will adequately reflect the nitrogen content of the pit, but will not be a good representation of the phosphorus concentration in the manure source, as phosphorus tends to be found in the solids that can settle to the bottom of the storage structure. Another way to take a liquid manure sample is to use a core sampler. The core sampler allows you to obtain a sample that best represents the manure from top to bottom throughout the pit, capturing any stratification, especially with phosphorus. The sampler is made using 1.5" PVC pipe with a tennis ball attached to a rope that plugs the end after taking a sample. There are commercial samplers that can be used also. To take a sample, release the plug and run the pipe down into the manure all the way to the bottom, then pull the plug tight. You should only sample from the solids at the bottom of the storage structure if in fact those solids will be completely agitated and removed from the structure. Take the sampler over to the sample bucket and release the plug, emptying the sample into the bucket. Taking one sample is similar to taking one soil core when soil sampling, so it is necessary to take subsamples from at least 3 locations within each pump-out port. After 3 subsamples have been taken from one port, move on to all remaining ports and access locations, repeating the process of mixing and taking 3 subsamples. After samples are collected, stir or swirl the bucket around to mix the subsamples. Next, using the funnel, pour the mixed sample into the labeled bottle until the bottle is about 3/4 full. The sample may be frozen before sending to the lab, so the extra space is needed for expansion. The sample should be frozen immediately and shipped frozen on a Monday or Tuesday, so it arrives at the lab for analysis during the week and not during the weekend.